When you see the phrase 300 rated game, it's usually preceded by the word typical, but I have to say that there's nothing typical about this game between a 275 from the US and a 340 from the UK. This game had it all: inaccuracies, blunders, best moves, and most importantly, 3 brilliant moves in a row. So without further ado, let's jump into the game. So White chooses to play the Vienna game. A man of culture, I see. But Black says, I'm more cultured than you, choosing to respond with the Falkbeer defense. Unsurprisingly, the book moves end on move 3. Knight to d5 is not a terrible move, but it just accomplishes nothing and wastes time instead of developing more pieces. So Black, as any principled player would do, takes the knight and then plays d6, which is the second best move. A better move would have been to develop the bishop to c5 so that it doesn't get blocked. White plays d4. Take notes, Martin, this is how openings are supposed to be played. Black responds with c6, hoping that White would take the pawn and help him develop his knight. But White chooses to develop his own knight to f3, which Stockfish doesn't like because it can be hit with e4. But this is a 300 rated game after all, so we get takes instead. I think it's safe to say that this has been a relatively peaceful opening phase. f6. Not very peaceful. White now has a check on h5, then another check on f7, then another check with the knight, and Black can't take it because it will be forced mate. So Black's king becomes vulnerable and White has a big advantage. But of course it doesn't happen. We get knight to g4 instead. g3. White once again proving he's a cultured individual, by choosing to fianchetto the bishop. Or at least I hope that's his goal. Black seems to have an obsession with pushing his f-pawn, with complete disregard for a certain grandmaster. d4 is a great move, grabbing more space and kicking the knight away. White here seems to have already made up his mind that there's no way he's not gonna fianchetto the bishop. There's just this small problem. It blunders a knight. Now if I gave you a million guesses you probably wouldn't be able to guess Black's next move. Black doesn't seem to think the bishop is enough to take the knight. So he lines up a legendary battery intending to checkmate the knight. Man, I don't think even Martin would put his queen in literally the worst square possible like that. Anyway, White to his credit takes with the bishop. No declined gambits today. And now we have the first brilliant move of the day. White sees the attack on his rook and says, I literally don't care. He plays the amazing move knight to e5. If Black takes the rook, White has the strong move queen to h5 check, and after g6, knight takes g6, another brilliant move, then bishop to f3, then the queen goes to h6, and after king to f7, knight takes the rook with check, rook takes back, king to f1, bishop to f8 and queen to h3. Obviously. So when our 275 rated protagonist saw this variation, he chose to play bishop to d6 instead. Then, White takes the knight on c6, Black responds with the best move, ignoring White's rook, and playing bishop takes f4 instead. So White can just castle, and save his rook and have a completely winning position, but he wanted to be featured in a YouTube video a month later, so he played his second brilliant move of the game. Queen takes d4. Black here still can't take the rook, because White has the strong move queen takes g7, and after black takes the knight, white's queen proceeds to win both of the black rooks. So our 275 rated protagonist sees this, of course, and we get b takes c6 instead. White then plays the final brilliant move of the game, g takes f4. If black takes the rook this time, white has another winning line which starts with queen to e5 check, and after the king moves queen takes g7 check, then queen to e5 check again, then castling with check. And as we all know, castling with check is forced, just like the French move. So after black saw this line, he chooses to castle instead of taking the rook. Short castling would have been slightly better, but I guess it's losing anyway. I have to say that apart from the Botez Gambit at the start, this game has been pretty high level for a 300 rated game. Have I spoken too soon? That just loses a rook. I'm starting to think you guys didn't actually see the lines that I mentioned. I can't believe white kept sacrificing his rook in a brilliancy after another, and then just a move later, lost it completely for free. I mean, white still has a big material advantage. But I think it's gonna be a bit harder now. Never mind, black gives him a bishop for free. Just when I thought this isn't a typical 300 rated game. Aha, so that's why he sacked the bishop. I see the point, but sadly, there's no ladder mate. White proceeds to give black's king some checks, and after a few moves, black loses on time.